Good morning. My name is Sharon Hurd. I'm the chairperson. Members, sorry. We're going to start the Board of Agriculture meeting today, October 22nd. And first, we're going to give the rules of procedures.
As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting, unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the Raise Hand button found on your Zoom screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If you are dialing in by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. Thank you.
In person. Okay. Thank you. Just a reminder that the testifiers are limited to a 2-minute maximum per agenda item. Okay, calling the meeting to order at 9:09 in the morning. The roll call vote. I will be taking a roll call vote of the board members present. When your name is called, please indicate your presence with a here or present and state who, if anyone over the age of 18, is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or recusals. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Okay, to begin, Sharon Hurd here. Deputy Director Ryan Kanaka-Ole, DLNR.
Present and alone.
Thank you. And Dr. Parwinder Grewal, CETA.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Mark Takimoto representing DBET.
Present, and I'm with staff in the room, Lyle Rowe and Francis Empeno.
Thank you, Mark. Diane Lay, Hawaii member.
Present, and I am with no one under the age or over the age of 18. Excuse me, over the age of 18.
Thank you. No dogs there?
No dogs, but my granddaughter will wake up eventually.
Okay. Thank you, Diane.
She's a teenager though.
Nathaniel Oswald from Maui County.
Yes, I'm present and by myself.
Okay, and Fred apparently will be joining us at 10:30, unless he's already here. No, thank you. Randy Cabral, member at large.
Good morning, present and alone.
Thank you, Randy. And Young, member at large.
Morning, present and alone.
Thank you. James Gomes, member at large.
Aloha kakayaka, present and alone.
Okay, thank you. We have quorum, and we'll begin by approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the August 27, 2024 minutes?
So moved, Jimmy.
Diane is seconding. There's a
Second.
thank you. And seconded by Diane. Minutes have been approved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
See no hands.
No hands. Anybody? Board discussion?
Chair, I'm going to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you, Randy. Do we
I
show
also, sorry,
Mark?
I also want to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Kellyanne was.
So that makes 6. Okay, we'll take the vote to approve the minutes of August 27th. Initially, we'll do the roll call. So Sharon says yes. Deputy Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Graywall?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mark has recused himself. Diane?
Aye.
Nathaniel Oswald?
Yes.
Thank you. And Randy is recused himself. And Young
Yes.
and James Gomes.
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. So we're gonna move on to the communications and divisions from the administration, starting with item A1. Request of approval for one loan guarantee to the Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Grewal. So, thank you. Presentation by staff.
Morning.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Jillian Scheibe. I'm from the State Agricultural Loan Division out of Kona. I'll be presenting a request for a loan guarantee for Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative. Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative was organized in August of 2016 and as an agricultural cooperative association. The participating lenders are Feed the Hunger Fund and Mission Driven Finance. The request is for an 80% loan guarantee on $1 million loan by the lenders. The fund will be used $100,000 for the installation of a water septic tank, $400,000 for constructing an intake building, $168,801 for a temperature controlled packing room. The operating funds will be used for general working capital. The expansion will increase the manufacturing capacity from 400,000 to 1 million pounds annually, which is in step with the projected yield of the current planted orchards. The term is for 7 years at a blended interest rate at 5.34%, monthly interest only payments with 6 principal payments of $25,000 occurring in Q1 and Q2. And between 2026 to 2028, Feed the Hunger Fund will provide a grant of $50,000 towards principal payments. So at maturity, a balloon payment of $800,000 will be due. The loan will be secured by first position leasehold mortgage on the Honolulu facility in Kona. The Honolulu marshaling facility sits at 1.91 acres, and is a HDOA lease that expires in 2043. The existing warehouse space is 4,800 square feet with a 300 square foot kitchen. The loan will be further secured by junior financing statement on all business assets, including accounts, equipment, and inventory. Over the past 8 years, the cooperative has grown from 9 members to over 160 farmer members with 6,300 ulu trees across 219 acres on 4 different islands. Annual breadfruit production volumes during this period have increased from less than 20,000 pounds in the first year of operation to nearly 140,000 pounds in fiscal year 23. Additional crops, sweet potato, taro, pumpkin, were added to increase market opportunities for the farmers and to provide year-round employment for workers. The co-crops combined production volumes now make up 64 to 74% of the total raw crop aggregate. In fiscal year 23, the co-op handled a record of over 500,000 pounds of local produce, of which 20% was sold fresh, and the remaining approximate 400,000 pounds was processed into steamed frozen product, ready-to-eat products, or dried and milled into ulu flour. As the orchards mature and more trees are planted, the yields are expected to increase fourfold by 2030. At this time, ulu should represent about 40% of the total crop aggregated. The co-op has successfully marketed their products with market demand outpacing their current production. Their products can be found at local grocers, online, restaurants, and other institutions. The proposed loan is conditional on a loan guarantee being provided from the Agricultural Loan Division. The guarantee is required to offset the loan amount being above the normal lender's limit. The benefit for providing the guarantee to the state is that the state funds will, that no state funds will be needed to be expended. The cooperative will be able to complete expansion on a timely basis. Farmers will be able to market their expanded production, and the state's leasehold property will be improved. The proposed loan will also have more favorable interest rates than the state program can offer, and there will also be a $50,000 principal reduction grant from Feed the Hunger Fund. Based on the strong collateral, demonstrated growth, projected cash flow, and the impact on Hawaii's farmers and consumers, staff recommends approval of this loan guarantee request.
Thank you, Julian. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No. She wants to testify.
Checking if anyone in the room wishes to testify.
I would like to give testimony.
Should I come up?
Yep.
Aloha, my name is Donna Shapiro. I'm the CEO of the Hawaii Ulu Co-op. And I just wanted to share some more information about the importance of this loan guarantee. As a farmer-owned cooperative in Hawaii, our access to capital is really limited. It's very hard for us to qualify for commercial debt or attract investors, regular investors. And so we've worked really hard to build a capital campaign with social impact investors who understand the triple bottom line impact of our business model, and that it's not all about economic returns. There's also a really important social and environmental benefit for Hawaii. And they still require the sort of financial guarantee that Jill just described. So the Department of Agriculture's ability to offer that guarantee and basically unlock this amount of capital for the co-op would be really hugely significant for us and allow us to reach our goals of scaling our business model and reaching economies of scale so that we can be economically viable without grant subsidies, basically. And that's really the goal of this overall capital campaign, and DOA's guarantee is really a pivotal piece of the whole equation, enabling us to get the capital that we need to scale, upgrade the facility, and also support working capital so that we can reach those volumes over the next few years.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else from the public? No hands raised? Okay, board discussion. Ann, is that Ann?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to see you. Chair, I have a conflict on this one, both on the investment committee for mission-driven finance and also KS's backing the loan. But just a couple of things. This is a good way to attract private capital. I think, from the department, from wearing the board hat, the loan guarantee, it's not necessarily an outlay. Yeah, it just comes in if things kind of go awry, and there is a risk sharing with the public. So it is, kind of a public-private, way that the department can incentivize private folks to bring in capital on what would be seen as a little riskier, from a conventional financing standpoint. But it's a way for, I think, for the state to kind of share the risk and incentivize that. And again, the money doesn't really, it's not like it's going to count against our total outlays unless, again, something goes awry. So, it's a good source of leverage.
Thank you, Ann. Any other board discussion? Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions for Jill Schreiber. We don't see, in fact, I'm not sure I remember. Well, no, I can't say that. We don't see very many loans applications come through for cooperatives. So some of my questions just, help me understand what the loan division looks at in procedures, when someone applies. Is it basically the same application and review process as with any agricultural business?
Yes, we're going to be looking still for the same levels of like, what are the collateral? How do we cash flow it? Does it make sense? There's just not a lot of cooperatives, and that's the real answer of why we just don't see many of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I guess along those lines, and and Young just mentioned, that it doesn't, if a loan guarantee is provided by the department, it doesn't necessarily, take away resources during the term of the loan unless there's, failure of the loan. But do you know how the department accounts for that? Is there a pool of resources that are available for guaranteed loans? And maybe this is a question for the division head. Just trying
That
to
would be a
better
better question for the division head. I do know when it comes down to it, we have a certain level of how much we can guarantee that is higher than our normal aggregate amount, but there is a cap, but that is probably a better question for my administrator.
Okay, okay, thank you. And then more specific to this application, so the improvements, the facility improvements would be at the Honolulu marshaling yard, right? Not some of the, okay. And then with working capital, that portion of the guarantee, what does that typically include in terms of working capital?
Capital, especially in the case of a co-op, normally is the soft padding they need to pay their farmers. Generally though, working capital can be anything from purchases and supplies, paying people the labor for the 6 months that you might not be able to use the area, any kind of things like that.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a couple more questions. That one was. And then, you know, in some of the material that was provided to the board, labeled as confidential, typically we have a credit. In the credit history, there is a credit rating score, and this one doesn't provide that. Is that typical of the process for guaranteed loans or for cooperatives?
It's going to be more based on the fact that they are not, yes, if for the fact that they are a cooperative, it's going to be a lot harder to do any kind of, like, right, it's not one person. I can't just do a credit check.
Okay, but it doesn't operate, you don't look at it similar to a business? I guess I'm not.
I would look at it similar to a business. And in the case of this, let's go ahead and go all the way over there. The way that we looked at it is we looked at, I have to follow the lockstep of what the lenders did, and the lenders went ahead and verified with all the creditors that they are currently have, that they're in good standing. And so that is how we've applied it into this.
Okay, okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So the lenders verified that. Okay, and then as far as the reference to the long-term debt, looks like about half of the balance, I mean, half of that is identified through the lenders did, and I don't want, don't want to release that information. I'm just wanting to know, did the department review what other lenders are part of that long-term debt? So it identifies two, but doesn't identify which is about 50% of the long-term debt.
And so all their creditors are listed. We have an accounting of the amount and who, what, where, and why.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then I guess, and then the last item I have is on page 9 of that handout with respect to the projections for fiscal year 2025. It references a loan amount. Is that this proposed loan?
Yes.
Or would that be in addition to it?
No, that's us. Or the guarantee that the lenders we're working with, that we're guaranteed, hopefully getting a guarantee for. Yeah.
So for projecting it for, well, yeah, and I wasn't sure what fiscal year that was. It was the co-op's fiscal year, which may be January to December, or if it's the states. Okay, thank you. I think that answers all of my questions. I appreciate the additional time.
Oh, thank you, Diane. But I'm going to ask Diane if you don't mind restating the question that we will follow up with the AGL loan administrator about the loan guarantee. If you could just restate it for follow-up.
Sure, I'll try to make sense of what I was getting at. Yeah, I was interested in just, I guess it's a function of how the loan division, if the loan division, sorry, let me just rethink this a second. If there's a
Diane, sorry to interrupt, but once you restate the question, I've been advised the dean is actually online.
Oh, great.
Yes, I'm online, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, so what, once you state.
Thank you, Dean. So my question is basically, so the division has for loan guarantees, it has a set dollar amount that's authorized by the legislature. Is that the case or?
Normally what we would do is, we take 10% of the loan amount and we put that on the side as coverage if we have to pay out. So all of our guarantees, and we're allowed to go up to $10 million in guarantees out there, exposure. So basically for each one, we put 10% on the side, and then hopefully we could, we have enough in that pot to cover whatever goes bad or goes awry.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
So then, does that answer the question? There's really no follow-up for next, okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other board discussion? I see a hand. Again, N?
Sorry, Chair, one more thing. I just,
Yeah.
with that, you know, to Diane's point, I think, you know, the purpose of kind of pooling the capital is not also to proliferate underwriting processes as well. Yeah. So, you know, for this particular one, you know, I can say they went through a couple of different styles of underwriting for sure. But I think, you know, wearing the board hat, you know, this is a newer instrument for us. We don't flex it, you know, we don't flex this muscle a lot. So, you know, it probably does behoove us as the department to take a look at what those joint processes look like with the external lenders. Yeah. So I know I can say from you know, wearing the KS hat that you know, we'd be happy to sit with the department and take a look at what that joint underwriting might look like.
Okay, thank you. Any other board discussion? Nope, okay. Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals?
I'm recusing.
Okay, that's right.
And Young, sorry.
Okay, so with that recusal, we'll take a roll call vote. Deputy Director Ryan Kanakaole.
Yes.
Dr. Parwinder Gurwal.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Takimoto.
Yes.
Diane Lay.
Yes.
Nathaniel Oswald.
Yes.
Fred Cowles excused. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
You and is recused. And James Gomes.
Aye.
Sharon votes yes. Motion passed unanimously with one recusal and one excused member. The motion is passed. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, moving on to item B1 from the plant quarantine branch. May I have a motion? Well, it's proposed amendments to chapter 4-72 from the HAR. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
I'll say Jimmy has moved and Brian has seconded. Okay. So the presentation by staff.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Jonathan Ho. I am the plant quarantine branch manager. We have a request for proposed amendments to Chapter 472 Hawaii Administrative Rules. The first is a request for extension of time for the submission of the hearing officer's report regarding Chapter 4-72 that, among other things, implements CRB interim rule, finalizes the CRB interim rules, implements fees for inspections and permits, allows authority for the prohibition on the movement of infested materials within the state, clarifies includes penalties for non-compliance, and then some substantive, non-substantive changes for grammar, punctuation, typeface. There's going to be a submission of the hearing officer's report and recommendation on the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-72 Hawaii Administrative Rules. a request for the acceptance of the minutes of the public hearings for these rules, and a request for adoption of the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-72 Hawaii Administrative Rules. So on February 28th, 2023, the board preliminarily approved the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-72, and which are attached as Attachment A. And in the next 4 pages is the individual things. The rules are essentially the same as those that were presented to the board, with a few changes, which I'll go after, primarily to definitions and a reference to the chief and SPRO. On January 30th, 2024, a public hearing was held to afford anybody who was interested the opportunity to submit testimony to the proposed amendments. Pursuant to 4-128C Hawaii Administrative Rules, the hearing officer's report is supposed to be filed not later than 10 days after the close of the public hearing. In this instance, it should have been filed by February 9th, 2024. It was not completed due to a number of factors, including the change or the departure of the original appointed hearing officer, and appointment to me as the plant quarantine branch manager, who's been dealing with other tasks regarding coconut rhinoceros beetle, coqui frog, and little fire ant. And pursuant to 4-116, there is the ability to authorize, if an extension of time, if there's excusable neglect, and the branch believes that an extension of time is appropriate in this instance. The complete hearing officer's report is included for you as Attachment B, and the minutes of the public hearing are included as Appendix A, and all 269 written testimonies that were received were also included as Attachments 1 through 269. The public hearing was published on December 27th, 2023, statewide in all the newspapers, and was also published on the department's website. The deadline for testimony submission was 11:59 p.m. on January 30th, 2024. The meeting took place in this room from 6 to 8 p.m. And it was a hybrid meeting conducted in person and also through Zoom video conferencing to allow anyone to participate. Overall, the public hearing, the comments that were received were generally supportive. And all testifiers were recognizing that the intent to minimize spread, what these rules are trying to do, is necessary. At the public hearing, there were 91 persons who were present, 24 of which provided oral testimony. Of the 24 testifiers, 23 were in support, strong support, and 1 testifier supported the intent, but had specific questions regarding how the enforcement of the transportation of things infested with pests, particularly those that are widespread. Of the 269 written testimonies that were received, all were received via email. 251 were in support, 3 were in opposition, and 15 supported intent with trying to find ways to manage spread, but seeking clarifications on the rules. And then 1 provided just comments only. And there's to note, the majority of the in-person testifiers also submitted written testimony as well. So for analysis, the department really had like 3 major things. First was the decision-making between the SPRO and the chief. There was the inclusion of a number of pests onto the list of examples of regulated pests, and the removal of a section that would allow the, or that would preclude the movement of infested materials in certain circumstances. So with regards to the movement of infested material, there are certain circumstances where that is necessary, for example, treatment or quarantines that aren't necessarily available at the ports, and research. And removing those particular portions of the rules obviously would prevent the department from being able to do the work that it needs to do. Regarding the pest list, the intent really was for these rules to be able to take action when necessary. And anyway, and sorry, lost my train of thought. And the inclusion of the pest list was, again, to try to future-proof some of the movement of those pests that were included, some of which don't exist in the state. HDOA does recognize that there is some confusion with regards to the list itself, and what things are where, and we want to work with industry to manage the quarantine process, should it be needed, and how we're going to be dealing with pests themselves moving forward. And the last one was the SPRO. There was a lot of concern about the fact that the rules don't define how the SPRO or the qualifications of the SPRO and how the SPRO is designated. And historically, the SPRO is the Plant Industry Division Administrator. However, in light of the rules and in light that the SPRO is not referenced anywhere else in any of the other administrative rules run by Plant Quarantine, the branch felt that it was best to revert that particular definition or remove the definition of SPRO, reinstate the definition of chief, and all references from that were SPRO were changed to chief. So basically the decision maker, it was reverted back to how the rules initially were. The hearing officer's recommendation, as the hearing officer, I'm recommending that the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-72 be as presented, with the proposed changes as proposed changes to SPRO and chief be approved, and that the staff's recommendation is that the proposed amendments are necessary to enable quick regulatory action, and that we are going to be working with industry, obviously, to make changes for clarity, and that we're recommending that we're requesting that the board accept the hearing officer's report and recommendations, accept the minutes of the public hearing, and approve the adoption of the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-72 with the following changes: the deletion of the proposed definition of SPRO, the reinstatement of the definition of chief, and changing all references from SPRO to chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
We'll start with Nate. You can please state your name and organization.
Aloha mai kako. This is Nate Doobie, manager for the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. I just wanted to come and testify again. I've submitted a lot of testimony regarding Chapter 4-72, all in strong support from the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. We support anything that will help us in our fight to stop the spread of high impact, high priority invasive species that are target species for OISC, such as little fire ant and coqui frog, but also just having that regulatory mechanism in place, and whatever the department needs to do to ensure that that happens more quickly than it has in the past, I would support that as well. We really see a gap in the regulatory aspect of managing some of these target species that we're dealing with on the ground each and every day. So again, I just want to lend my strong support for all the hard work that's gone into this, and we support these revisions and hope that this will help us with some of the species we're dealing with now and some of the species that we will be dealing with in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Okay, we also have Joseph. Joseph, if you can please state your name and organization.
Aloha, my name is Joe Watt. I'm a community member. I'm also in strong support of these amendments to the administrative rules. Agreeing with Nate, I think that we need much stronger regulatory oversight on the movement of these materials. Since testifying in January 2024, both the house where I currently live and the house where my uncle lives have tested positive for little fire ants. These are new infestations. We did not have little fire ants a year ago. And even though for one of these infestations, I caught the incoming plant material within a week of it arriving on my property, I still need to treat for a year and monitor for 3 years following that. We are in desperate need of assistance in regulating the movement of these materials on island. We don't have enough money as it is, and we will not have enough money to manage all these infestations in another 2 years. I'm extremely grateful that this is moving forward, and anything we can do to expedite this process and empower the HDOA to have the capacity to do this, please let us know. We want to collaborate and make sure that you folks have what you need for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Next, we have Sierra Club of Hawaii.
Chair, members of the board, Wayne Tanaka with the Sierra Club of Hawaii. We're in strong support of the adoption of this rule amendment package. Did want to emphasize that if and when the governor signs these rules, that's really the start. There's going to be a lot of investment needed in implementation and in plan and strategy development, including in making appropriate requests to the legislature next year. And hopefully we can work together with the department to advocate for things that will meaningfully enhance our biosecurity infrastructure, which is obviously desperately needed. And yeah, and I would encourage given that, I would encourage the board to ask the staff to regularly update you all, and by extension the public, on the progress in implementing these rules and in strengthening our biosecurity mechanisms. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions, and we strongly urge the board to adopt these rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Okay, next we have Eric. You can please state your name and or organization. Eric? Okay, we'll get back to him. Stephanie, you can please state your name and organization.
Aloha, my name is Stephanie Easley with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. We submitted written testimony in strong support of the proposed amendments to Chapter 72. We're grateful for the work that HDOA and this board has done to get it to this point, and we hope that HDOA will take the remaining necessary steps. We hope this board will approve it, and HDOA will take the remaining necessary steps, submitting this, which includes submitting to the Small Business Regulatory Review Board and to the governor for signature as quickly as possible so these amendments can take effect. And to clarify, we do not want any changes to the proposed rule amendments at this time, because any changes would effectively send the rules back to the drawing board for another public hearing and months of years of review. They're a great step forward, and we hope you will adopt them. However, I did want to point out how modest these rule amendments are. They do not contain a ban on selling to the public plants, mulch, or other merchandise that is infested with little fire ants, CRB, or coqui frog. Even if the seller knows about the pest infestation, we hope that the board members will urge HDOA to adopt an interim rule that does contain a requirement that such a seller quarantine infested plants, mulch, and other merchandise. It's a common sense step, and we really hope that HDOA would move forward with that action. We are grateful that it restarts the compliance agreement program on Oahu, which requires people in the business of transporting, selling, or processing CRB host material to use best management practices. We hope that this board will expand that program to Kauai, which HDOA has determined is widely infested. That would slow the spread of CRB on Kauai and protect uninfested islands of the state. And finally, we urge HDOA to work with the Office of the Governor to seek an emergency proclamation for CRB across the state. It is an emergency situation. An emergency proclamation would make additional funding available, would allow a more rapid response to infestations, ease procurement rules, and we really hope you'll consider it. Thank you for considering my testimony today.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'd like to add, though, Stephanie, in your testimony, you mentioned that you did not want any changes to the admin rules. Does that include the rules that we are making, which are, according to council, as we propose, they are acceptable? Are you aware that we're suggesting fee changes?
You mean with regard to the SPRO and the chief?
Yes.
Yes, we hope that you will move forward as you propose them. At this
Okay. All right, just wanted to clarify that you were aware that we're making the change. I should have known, Stephanie, just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll go back to Eric. Eric, are you there? Yeah, we can't hear you. You might need to check on your mic. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Apologize for that. My name is Eric Tanoe. I'm with Hawaii Floriculture Nursery Association. Hawaii Floriculture Association is an umbrella group. We have about 350 members statewide, and we're primarily hybridizers, propagators, growers, shipper, wholesalers, retailers, educators in the allied industry that support our industry. In regards to proposed amendments for 4-72, Hawaii Administrative Rules entitled Plant and Non-Domestic Animal Quarantine Plant in the Interstate Rules. We understand the need to update the amendments, yet we still have large concerns on the changes being implemented. To put it simply, the language in the proposal is confusing for our members, and we would like an easy or easier way of sharing with our member growers what we are asked to do. So if these changes go forward, we find it important to have or request a guidance document for clarity. This guidance document should contain helpful explanations such as a clear explanation on the impacts of harboring pests and any repercussions, an explanation of fees and how they will be implemented, how a quarantine would be enacted, administered, and the steps to end the quarantine with a timeline of the steps needed to get out of quarantine, a current list of regulated pests that their status being vetted, and suggested actions by the department. This information delivered in an easy to digest format will allow our grower producers to have trust in the system the Department of Agriculture is putting forth and the system in its place, not to jeopardize their livelihoods with complicated requirements, but to help assist them in production. Then with this information gathered, it would be good to meet with stakeholders to explain the changes. Thank you for allowing the consideration for our review and suggestions on the changes of 4-72. And I'm happily willing to take questions if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I see our branch chief furiously taking notes. Do you have any questions, since there was quite a lot there?
No, everything that Eric said makes sense. And the industry has been quite consistent with a lot of the concerns, and the concerns are the branch recognizes those concerns. However, as we've historically done, we are going to work with industry members that are affected by pest issues before we start taking regulatory action. That's what we've always done and what we'll continue to do. And providing clarification on the list of things that industry would like to see is not a problem for us. And we want them to understand what is required of them, because we know that the industry wants to comply. They're not looking to spread pests around. anything that we can do to help them to comply is what we're gonna do. Thank you for the comments.
We have Joseph Watt.
Aloha, I just had a quick question in regards to that previous question about the reference documents. So first off, I wanted to say I'm really grateful to hear that the agriculturalists support the need that managing invasive species is important. So thank you. I'm excited to hear that. I'm wondering how C.F.R should be involved in that. I feel like the translation of the administrative rules is an extension task. And I just wanted to get HDOA's thoughts on that type of collaboration.
They just take all of the testimony.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. We're going to address that after we've taken public testimony. We do have Dr. Graywall online from C.F.R. So do you mind if we just continue with the testimony and take all the questions at the end?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the list.
No other hands.
No other hands. So can I ask for Dr. Graywall?
For discussion.
For discussion?
And you can.
I'm sorry. Is there's someone in the room that wishes to testify?
Are you moving so far out? It is yours.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Thank you for the opportunity to provide in-person testimony. We're going to echo a lot of the comments from Mr. Tanoy and Hefna, but we want to first acknowledge the Department of Ag staff and their partners on their work to fight invasive species. I heard a previous testifier say fight. It's absolutely we're in a fight against invasive species. I also want to acknowledge DOA staff on their work on these proposed amendments. We know it's been a long road, and we agree. Industry wants to comply. We do. And we agree that we should be going after the bad actors. But as you heard Mr. Tanoy say, we do have some concerns. We appreciate the consideration for removing the SPRO and return back to the chief. I know industry really had concern with that, so we appreciate the department amending that. We are asking for a guidance document. Right? You heard Mr. Tanoy articulate why, and we'll repeat that. It is confusing to our members, to our growers, to some of the stakeholders. The language is confusing. So we are asking for a guidance document for clarity to explain or clearly explain the impacts of harboring pests and any repercussions. Explanation on the fees and how they'll be implemented. That was a discussion that we had amongst our members. How a quarantine will be enacted, how it'll be administered, and the steps to end the quarantine with a timeline. That's something that we hear a lot from our growers. If we are in quarantine, how we get out? What does it take? How long is it going to take? Again, we don't want our businesses to close, but again, we want to fight invasive species. And an updated list on regulated pests with their status being vetted and the suggested actions by the department. And we appreciate the branch chief's comments on industry's concerns and things that the department hopefully will address. But again, the guidance document is something that's been discussed by many of our members and by our leadership, and we are asking for commitment on this guidance document. Aside from that, we appreciate the hard work and appreciate the time and the opportunity for the Hawaii Farm Bureau to provide testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any additional public testimony? Board discussion? Is that Jimmy?
James Gomes and
Recognizing Jimmy, James Gomes.
Okay, actually, the last two testifiers, Eric and Brian Miyamoto, has touched on everything that I was asked to talk about. And so I don't want to be redundant, but Brian and Eric hit it on all topics that needs to be resolved. One of the other question I have is there ample funds for this moving forward? We may have the rules in place, but will we have funding? It's a question I have. And do we have staff? I mean, we can have all rules you can make all the rules you want, but if you don't have staff to enforce it, nor do you have the funds, then we're back to square root one. That's about it that I have for now.
Yeah, so the legislature provided was it $10 million through Act 231. And with that were 22 positions for plant quarantine. 20 of them are for inspectors throughout the state. I want to say it was, I think, 10 on Oahu, I think 1 on Kauai, 3 on Maui, and I think 5 on Hawaii Island, something like, I don't remember the numbers, but again, we got positions for that. The plant pest control branch also obtained positions, and the department is looking to one, use the $10 million as a start for a lot of the pests, particularly with CRB and LFA. And the department is looking to get the full amount legislatively for ongoing or basically recurring funds that, like you said, the department will have the resources to fully implement the needed work for pest and invasive species control.
So where do you find staff? I mean, you got the money, but is there people that you can procure to come and work as inspectors or staff? Is there a pool that you have, or I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for plant quarantine, we've been pretty fortunate. Most of the vacant inspector positions, we're able to refill them pretty quickly. And I think we have specific ports, so like Kona and Maui have been, I think, the most difficult with regards to, I guess we have quite a bit of turnover. Guys are, I think it's cost of living, but they're coming in and they're staying for a short period of time and then they're leaving. So those have been the two. So I think Kona, we're down 1 right now, and Maui, we're down 2. The positions that are in active recruitment, I think the Kona one we tried to fill, but the person dropped out. So those are the only 2 parts right now where we're having some issues. But for the rest of the plant quarantine, we're actually not too bad on the line. And most of the, I'm trying to think what's the number, but the vast majority of the inspectors that we have gotten are actually from the University of Hawaii. They're all local kids, or and or they've gotten degrees from the university. So we've been we've been getting that for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This doesn't pertain to it, but it is for another discussion, because we still have a major issue with the 2-line spittle bug and rod, but that's for a different discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy, for the question. It's an opportunity to say that the department is always recruiting. And even with these 22 positions that Jonathan referenced from Act 231, we are coming back for additional positions because, as we all know, the pathways of entrance for invasives is increasing a lot. And, the numbers of packages coming in that need inspection, because invasives travel on cars and equipment and construction material and pallets and packages everywhere. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the resources, but we always be recruitable, and we like to be everywhere all the time, all at once. And that would be the goal, to really get a handle on biosecurity. So appreciate the question. Anybody that's online, if you know someone that could or qualifies and would like to work, call Jonathan. So next on the board.
I think Carol, that is that.
Is that Dr. Grewal?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hurd. I'm really very thankful for the leadership of the department on this issue. Invasive species is one of the biggest issues that we are dealing with. And it is great to see huge collaborations occurring here, and along with the industry support that this change would move forward. I do want to echo the comments made by Eric Tenoy and Brian from Hawaii Farm Bureau that a simplified guidance of sorts is needed to kind of really show the implications and how different processes or steps would work, so that people who, especially those producers who do not understand the complex language of the bill, they would be able to, follow through and comply. The other piece I wanted to answer, somebody raised a question about the role of C.F.R. and extension. We will definitely support in terms of educating all the farmers and producers and anybody who is involved in the sale of products such as the compost and or soils, as we are currently doing and will continue to do so. In addition, extension would also try to explain the language of these changes to anybody who would need. I do have a question related to the fees, especially the inspections and such. Would everyone be able to afford to pay the cost of obtaining the permit and the inspections needed? If there are difficulties, especially for smaller producers, is there a mechanism for them to actually obtain the patent and go through the inspections? Because this issue is so pervasive now, I don't know whether everything could be done within the hours of the day, as overtime and such would get really hefty and costly for any producers to get the inspections accomplished. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can address the fee portion, at least for the inspections. So the fee portion right now is actually already being implemented. There was I can't think of, in 2010, basically, the legislature actually required the fees. And so we've actually already been charging when they're appropriate. So basically all we're doing is adding it to the rules just to clarify it for everyone. So most of the producers that require inspections that are done away from the port are already dealing with the fees. And a lot of the inspections as they are now, the producers or the shippers actually come to us at the ports and the inspections are free. So we don't charge them for that. The permitting fees are new. Those are things that were not charged before, so they were free. So the biggest impact right now for inter-island would likely be for what would it be for? Probably be for soil shipments of plants for rapid ohia death, and then for logs for building material. Those are probably the two bigger ones that would have a lot of permits. The rest of them are quite niche, and the permits, again, it's $100 for unlimited shipments. So it's not like it's not an exorbitant cost. So if they pay the $100, they can ship as many times as they want, as long as they meet the permit conditions within the 365 days for the date of issuance. So it's not like they have to pay $20 for every shipment and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer the question, Dr. Grewal?
It does. I'm kind of mainly concerned about the inspections that needed to happen. If things happen this way, that the producers are bringing materials to the inspection site, then that's okay. But if the site has to be, inspected and such, the cost could become quite hefty. That's the main concern that I had.
So, so a lot of those shipments, again, those are like very large, containerized type shipments. Again, yeah, those folks are already paying the fees. So we're not increasing the fees in any way, shape, or form. They're already charged, the $50 inspection fee.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take the opportunity to thank C.F.R's previous leadership and Dr. Grewal, your current leadership with collaborating with the department on the list of pests and working with us and updating. And I think all of us at the department appreciate your staff, science-based, of course, as we are. So thank you. We plan to do what this board is, what the comments have been, and to update the pest list regularly. I think that's what has been asked. Do you agree, Jonathan?
Yeah, so I think so one of the challenges is so there are we have in these rules 4-72 examples of regulated pests, and then there is a list of pests for control and eradication in 4-69, and they're not the same. So from industry, it makes sense, right? There's so what is it? And what's going to be there? And I think moving forward from the department standpoint, 4-69 is actually under plant pest control. 4-72 is under plant quarantine. And I think coming up with a singular place for all of that to go would, I think, obviously manage, I think, a lot of the clarity that industry is looking for, right? They know one place to look. They know exactly again, why it's on the list, boom, 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 boom. So they understand what needs to be done. And I think, to address, I think, Mr. Watt's comments about, how the department has worked with C.F.R. In Act 231, there are some funds for system approaches for pest management. So they're not necessarily limited to CRB, LFA, or COKI. And the department used to do a lot of that, particularly for COKI. And I think, with the funds now, we're looking to kind of reinvigorate that process and collaboration with C.F.R. to provide that needed outreach and support to industry.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next board member with hand raised. Randy Cabral.
Thanks, Chair. Hey, Jonathan, glad they finally removed acting from your title. So congratulations on that. I want to echo what Farm Bureau said, Brian Miyamoto, and also Eric, and the need for that guidance document. But I want to take it one step further. Jonathan, you said that, yes, you agree that it should be there should be a guidance document, but what time frame are we talking about in developing this guidance document? Because saying you want to do it versus actually getting something done and in hand. So can you give a time frame as to when you think you could get a guidance document done and completed?
To be very honest, I don't know. I think so. To provide, I think, a very rough, like a 1 to 2 pager, I think we could do very easily. I think the challenge is the one of the issues with regards to pests and the managing of them is that how you deal with an individual pest on an individual island will be different. For example, like what we do on Oahu for CRB and what Hawaii Island does for Koki and LFA will be different on Kauai and Maui. So I think, that finding a way to provide that specificity for each group by island generally, I think is going to be the most difficult part. But I think a lot of the higher level, I think, clarification that the rules are missing can be provided prior to the implementation of the rules. And then, and if not, if that cannot occur, meeting with industry folks, you know, with Eric and Farm Bureau and Hefna and Farm Bureau, or whoever else would like to be part of that, to, you know, get, you know, answer any questions and then be able to incorporate that kind of stuff. We can do that regardless of whether or not the document is there. Because again, if they understand and they can comply. But if we can, I'd like to have at least high level things that go across the board for the state done before the implementation of the rules so that they can comply. That's what I'd like to do. And again, we can provide, I think as other, I think it was Mr. Tanaka of the Sierra Club said, we can provide updates to the board, you know, where we're at with that, and, you know, provide drafts or things like that so that, you know, you folks know that, and the industry knows that these things are moving and that they can, you know, see and review, and then we can make sure that whatever is finalized is going to be the best thing possible for everyone.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Jonathan. If the monthly updates at the board meetings is always on the agenda. And so Randy, you could look for that. You know, always welcome to send in emails or testimony to Jonathan for addition to the guidance document, which is meant to be educate before you regulate. So the guidance document will be updated as part of the board meetings. Okay, Randy?
Let's get to here. Another question. It's just procedure. If we approve today new rules, does it go to small business or does it go direct to the governor for review?
So there is an after public hearing, small business regulatory review board meeting before it goes to the governor. Because
Okay,
these rules do affect small business.
What is the authority of the small business? As far as it's just review only, or do they have a say in the rule?
Randy, this is Brian Yu. So the Small Business Regulatory Review Committee is allowed to comment on it, but they do not have the authority to change a rule.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, in the proposed rules, it says something about the state not being responsible for economic loss and damage. Is this standard language in any rulemaking, or is it something unique to this? I'm not hearing anything. Is it frozen or something?
No, sorry. So the intent of this particular portion was to deal with things like, for example, treatment. You know, so for example, a required treatment could destroy a shipment, you know, for so I think that was the intent of this particular thing. We do have something like that for in the permit conditions, but that was the intent of this particular economic thing. It's designed specifically for treatment or quarantine. So like, for example, if a shipment is quarantined because there's coqui frogs and it misses the barge, for example, because it needs to be treated. Like it's designed for those types of things. I'm not sure if you can, like, is it a blanket statement where we're just not liable for anything? But that was my understanding of when it was included.
Yeah, it kind of comes across to me as a blanket thing, so I'm a little worried about that, you know, you can pretty much do anything and not be liable based on what this says. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, and, you know, the deputy AG maybe can comment on this.
I think my comment would be, and I was trying to think of other situations, but the ones I'm thinking of have specific provisions in the law. So for example, if you have to destroy crops because it has banana bungee top, or if you had to, so I have provisions for that. And I think the intent was to recognize that sometimes where the plant is infested, there may be an economic loss, but the state doesn't allow the plant to be transported anyway, just because the state's not paying for it. So I think that's the purpose of this provision.
Okay, but is it in other rules language also, or is this unique to this?
You know, I don't think we pay for like banana bungee top destruction. Cattle is different. Cattle has a whole separate structure. But I think it's sort of built into the regulation of that structure. So I don't know that I can say there's one particular way in which we do it in all cases. So like
Okay.
with cattle, there's always a compensation, right?
Okay, another question, and I guess this came up because of the news article that the chair made mention, but do we have to approve the rules in total, or can we recommend parts be taken out? And
you can, well, there's only one approval, right? So you're approving something. You can, and let me just deal with the particular issue you were saying. You can remove section 9, I think, because that is not such a change that it requires another public hearing. But if you were to make significant changes, particularly additions or modifications, those have to be examined more closely, because if they are significant enough, it would require another whole public hearing process to go through. But if I think if you had simply said adopt the rules but delete 4-72-9, I think that in and of itself, because that's simply a deletion, I think could be done. 4-72-9 is not in the existing rules, so you're not deleting an existing rule that has not been noticed to the public.
okay, thank you.
Does that
That's-
answer your question? Okay.
Okay, next would be Diane Lake.
Thank you, Chair. And I really appreciate this conversation, both with the community, some of our conservation organizations, as well as the nursery floriculture industry, which also is, I think, in a sense, represent, as well as Farm Bureau, which does represent the broader agricultural community. I think this is really important. And I do want to acknowledge Jonathan Ho and his leadership, both in bringing these rules forward, but also acknowledging the need for a systems approach to this work, because while we're focused on these rules and the board is focused on the plant industry and folks moving soil, logs and things like that, that focal point. This really is it is about an all hands on deck approach to managing and controlling and in some cases, hopefully eradicating the ongoing arrival of invasive species. And it has to be an all hands on deck. It's not about just the commercial nurseries and managing this. Community has to take responsibility. The government has to take responsibility. So I think, it's about us all working together, and I really do appreciate that. And the more we can stress that, and more that we can find ways to collaborate, strengthen our funding sources for government to support both enforcement as well as detection and education, and supporting the businesses when they are impacted negatively. Let's all do this together. We can get to a point where we have a better system of approaching this, rather than the crabs in the bucket pulling each other down, because that doesn't get us where we need to be. These invasive species are out there. They're doing what they do. They eat, they breed and they move, and they move not only through plant material being sold in pots, but they move from lot to lot, from forest to forest. So we need to address it that way. So I appreciate that. And I just want to say that I agree, with the comments about, guidance being provided to the commercial sector. That will help them stay in compliance, do the right thing. They need to be able to plan for their businesses. They need to be able to address the problem before they have to call Jonathan and go, I think I got a problem. They need to do their own, quarantining and their own treatments, but they need to know what they would, where the triggers are for them. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the dean's comments as well as the industries about the fees. I think that, more clarity we can provide to the producers and reassurances, that will be helpful. And then the educating the producers about the listing of pests, who determines those lists, how do they get updated? Those are all important. So, yeah, let's do this together. Let's get this done, get us to a better place where we can better manage this situation, because it's not going to get easier. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. On to James Gomes.
Yes, thank you. Diane answered a lot of my questions or said a lot of things that I would like to say, so I'm not going to say it. But one important thing that I do believe is what you said, Chair. We have monthly updates. The public needs to be aware. We need to be very transparent. We have been labeled in the past, HDOA, DLNR, as not being transparent enough, or not doing enough. But I think if we have updates, the public, as well as our stakeholders, can see where we at, what's happening. So, we're not idly sitting back and, well, the funds are gonna expand, or it's gonna be, we won't have enough, or whatever it might be, but keep the public aware, our policymakers and so forth. We've had senators come before us. I think that is a very important thing for us to stay on top of it, so the public knows that we're on board. But appreciate all the comments, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Any other board presentation, any other board comments? No? Okay, I'd like to note that member of the public has a hand raised, and while the public commentary period has ended, I would like to exercise the right to recognize the public commenter, but remind that there's a 2-minute limit for testimony. So Stephanie?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address the State Department of Agriculture not being liable for the costs of any treatments for infested merchandise or destruction or treatment that's required. I just wanted to point out the analogy to the Department of Health's restaurant inspection program, where if there's a violation, the Department of Health doesn't pay to fix the violation. It's the owner, working with the Department of Health. And at the initial preparation of these rules, that was sort of the model that they were looking at, because it would not impose costs on the department to take those actions, which could potentially have a potential chilling effect on the department. And it's a model used by other departments that are regulatory agencies across the state. Thank you for recognizing me and allowing me to speak.
Oh yeah, Stephanie, that's a good comment. And as my comment would have been that other businesses, other state agencies do have this protection. It's quite prevalent in businesses, post office, for instance, delayed shipments and on and on. But I do want to say that if the board decides to eliminate 4-72-9 as a risk, it's a board decision. However, in the case of a claim, we would have to go to court for every claim, from a business owner who says that when we treated their nursery plants with citric acid at the concentration that is required to be effective for poking frog control, it's probably going to result in damage to the plant in the concentrations that are required. And then we would, in the unlikely, or in the event that there is a claim for those damages, every one of them without 4-72-9 would be a court action. And it would create an undue burden on the department. And looking over at Jonathan, who's not saying anything, I can tell you that it's going to be tough to make take this to court in every case, and expensive. So consider that some of the treatments that are required by the label may result in some liability. So please keep that in mind. Any other testimony? Nope. Hearing, seeing none. Oh, Randy.
Chair, I just want to make a comment on that. You know, I understand the liability portion. And you want to avoid any kind of liability, but you know, if there is negligence, right, that the department should be held liable if there's negligence on the department's part. So it's not a matter of comparing it to a restaurant and Department of Health. I think it's two different things completely. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Randy. Pointing.
You have a hand raised from the public, Joseph Watt.
Having.
Do this also.
All right. So we're going to be recognizing another member of the public, Joseph Watt, but it will be the last public testimony that we'll be accepting during this time, as the public testimony period has closed. Joseph, you're reminded of the 2-minute limit.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask this question. I feel like the department doing its due diligence to treat for invasive species is a risk that should be encumbered by the Department of Agriculture. I do also feel like if there is invasive species management expectations set by the legislature and the community, and I think that it is something that potentially you guys would, I just think it's really important to manage this stuff. And if you guys are taking money for managing invasive species, but not implementing, I worry that that is something that would also open up the Department of Agriculture to potential liability. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's both costs to action and inaction on this. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other board discussion?
Yeah,
Oh, Nathaniel Oswald.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I apologize for my obtuseness. I've spent 35 years in the sun and soil. So I've read through the document probably 6 times. And I am very excited to see that we're moving forward, because I think for the most part, 99% of the agricultural community, we're on the front line. We're fighting these things every day. It's actually a big part of our cost and headache to be a producer, right? So I'm hopeful that this verbiage and the way that we're pushing this forward is to really address the bad actors. Because when you read through this, the way I can see a lot of this is it actually can simmer all the way down to like the individual homeowner, right? If I pass a plant my neighbor and it's infested, I may be subject to being out of compliance. At least is how I'm reading this. So I feel like I want to reassure that that's kind of like we're looking at. This is a kind of a broad brush document, and I know it's necessary. And for that, you know, I'm thankful that it's put together. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that's kind of the goal of this is to address these large scale items.
Well, so I would say it's not necessarily scale. You are correct that the rules, because they are broad, could cover a private citizen who, you know, I think there was somebody testified about, you know, moving papaya with papaya ring spot virus and give it to their neighbor, you know. and again, I think to speak to what you had said, the intent is to be able to take action when necessarily, particularly for those, could be individuals who are, basically spreading pests. And it could be a private individual. So the intent is obviously, I think the brunt is obviously going to be industry, unfortunately, because like that's their livelihoods. But the understanding that anyone could move pests, and you need the ability to take action, and that's really the intent. And trying to we struggled a lot with trying to find specific language to kind of try to manage that, and we understand that the chief may. That discretionary term is used throughout, has the possibility for misuse. But like we said, the department has a track record of working with industry and in a particular manner, and we don't intend on changing that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I think all this rule changing is to bring attention to the word biosecurity. Biosecurity is the new buzzword moving forward. I think when we did our surveys of the public, biosecurity concerns was the #1 concern statewide. And so moving forward, I think this rule change will bring again to light the necessary or the impactful role that biosecurity has in the state, not only for agriculture, but for the state in general, quality of life. Biosecurity is gonna be important moving, into the future. So thank you. We'll move, no more hands? Okay. Calling for the vote. Do a roll call? Okay. There's my notes, okay. Calling for the vote, first would be Deputy Director Ryan.
Yes.
Can I call it?
Yes.
Do I have to restate the motion?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, just so we're clear, you do know that the first matter you've got before you is simply the extension of time. So
There's 4 motions.
yeah, so this particular matter is just whether or not we're going to agree to extend the time to allow for the submission of the hearings officer's report, a little after its day. So, I suppose if you could ask for just sort of the general, it seems non-controversial, so that one you may just want to ask for all in favor.
Okay.
Or any abstentions or recusals.
I'm gonna ask Brian to please restate the motion that we're voting on, so we're clear.
So, yeah, so if you look at your agenda, there are 4 matters. The motion that was made was simply the request for extension of time for submission of the hearings officer's report and recommendation on proposed amendments to chapter 4-72 for the revised rules. I'm not gonna repeat the name of the rules. So this is just the extension of time for the submission of the hearings officer's report.
Okay, so for that one, I'll just take a general, any abstentions or recusals? Any negatives? Hearing none, this motion will pass unanimously. And the second motion would be?
So I think the submission is not a motion. I think you just received the submission, so it was on the agenda. So the second motion would be a motion to accept the minutes of the public hearing.
So the motion is to accept the minutes of the public hearing. And for this, we will also do a general.
We need somebody to make the motion.
May I have a motion to approve the second item?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Second,
Seconded.
Marvin.
and may I ask who that was?
Yep.
Fred.
Oh, Fred Cowell entered the room. Sorry, we should recognize that Fred Cowell is now present. Thank you, Fred. So moved and seconded, we're taking the general vote. Any abstentions or recusals, any negatives? Hearing, seeing none, this motion also passes unanimously. And moving to the third motion,
Yeah, it's a motion, I assume, to adopt the proposed amendments to chapter, well, it's up to you to define how you want to
okay.
phrase it.
So for this motion, it's to accept the rules with the changes, and I believe the changes were to move the SPRO to chief. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the proposed changes, so the differences from what the board had initially approved back in February. So basically three things. The proposed definition of SPRO has been removed. We've reinstated the definition of chief, which was in the rules prior. And then all references of SPRO in the proposed rules are either reverted back to chief or changed to chief.
Second, change.
Yeah, so those are the three. Yeah, so deleting SPRO, reinstating chief, and then basically all references of SPRO are now chief. Those are the changes. Yeah, it's complicated.
For purposes of phrasing the motion, it could simply be a motion to approve or a motion to adopt the amendments as proposed by DOA.
Thanks.
Okay, so may I have a motion to adopt the rules as proposed by DOA?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Second,
Second, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you. But before I take the vote, I want to restate that by accepting these rules, it does not mean that the further changes are not going to be considered. And by that, I mean the changing of the pest list, the regular guidance document, the updates, those are still open to discussion in the future. Brian? Yes, okay. So we can accept the rules moving forward with the understanding that further clarifications, education before regulation, guidance documents, regular updates are still open to the board and the public as well. Okay. So for this one, I will be taking a roll call vote. And I'm sorry, I forgot. Did we already approved the motion? We did. Moved and seconded. Okay, thank you. Moving forward to the roll call vote. Deputy Director Ryan Kanaka-Ole.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Parwinder Grewal.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Takimoto.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark. Diane Lay.
Yes.
Nathaniel Oswald.
Yep.
Fred Cowell.
Yes.
Thank you. Randy Cabral.
Aye.
Ann Young.
Yes.
James Gomes.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, unanimously passed. Thank you. Moving on to old business, is that what I have?
New business.
New business. No old business, so moving on to new business. Do we have a invasive species action update?
I would say for the action update is the department has been working with the plant quarantine, or the plant industry division has been working with the office of the chairperson to come up with a pretty comprehensive plan for the use of the Act 231 funds, particularly as they relate to CRB, LFA, all the things in there. The chair's office and division have been working on getting contracts, particularly for CRB management on Oahu, treatments of public lands on neighbor islands, a contract for the use of PCOs for LFA treatments on each county. So the licensed pest control operators for residential properties. Oh, good Lord, I can't think of all the other things on purchasing citric for Koki.
There was mention of rosary parakeet, two-line spittlebug.
Yeah, so the two-line spittlebug, I think there's gonna be a contract for gosh, what was his name? Dr. Thorne and Dr. Wright to do some research for two-line spittlebug. I think for Oahu, City and County of Honolulu, and Kauai County for rose-ring parakeet. But yeah, so basically the all the fund, the $10 million, we have plans and we're working to effectuate all of those things. And I think we can provide the board with a more detailed update at the next board meeting about where each of those particular tasks are.
Thank you. Regarding new business item 2, I'm going to ask for a presentation on the non-action item. Presentation by staff.
Should be Brandy.
Thank you, Johnny.
Good morning. Can I be seen and heard?
Yes. We can see it, Brandy.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Brandy Ayo, Property Manager with the ARM Division on the Big Island. I will be providing you with the update this morning on Newtown and Country Stables and the Kapapala Ranch. First off will be the Newtown and Country Stables. General lease numbers 5488 and 5489 were transferred from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to the Department of Agriculture on August 29th, 2017 by Executive Order 4535. Mr. Gibson currently owes approximately $95,000 in back lease rents to the HDOA. This does not include any amount that was owed to DLNR prior to the set-aside. The annual lease rent for the 2 properties has not changed since the department received the properties in 2017. ARMD has been attempting to work with Mr. Gibson to come to a solution to not only settle the outstanding lease rent, but also to convert the lease from a DLNR lease to a DOA lease. On April 6, 2024, Mr. Gibson sent a letter to the Department of Agriculture regarding the outstanding lease rent. Mr. Gibson offered approximately $6,311 to settle the outstanding lease rent. On June 27th, the department sent a counter offer back to Mr. Gibson to settle all lease rents owed to the department. The total amount offered was significantly less than the $95,000, did not include any interest on the back rent, and did not include the amount owed to DLNR. The counteroffer letter also included the appraisals for the lease rent after the lease is converted into a DOA lease. Staff believes that the department's offer is reasonable, especially in light of the appraisals. The appraisals came out to approximately $85 per year for both leases for 30 acres of land. On July 4th, Mr. Gibson responded back to our June letter stating that he would only pay the $6,311 offered back in April. On September 12th, the department sent another letter to Mr. Gibson, further explaining the lower amount and why it was reasonable since after conversion, the lease rent amount would be substantially lower. This was also in hopes of trying to get Mr. Gibson to negotiate directly with the department to find a suitable amount of back rent owed. Mr. Gibson was given a deadline of September 20th to respond. We have not received a response from Mr. Gibson since that letter. On October 3rd, the United States Environmental Protection Agency sent the department a letter regarding the Newtown Country and Stables lease regarding a potential large capacity cesspool. On October 15th, the department sent a letter to Mr. Gibson requesting for assistance regarding the potential large capacity cesspool. On October 11th, DLNR went to the BLNR requesting approval for issuance of a RP, an immediate ROE permit, to Mr. Gibson for grazing purposes in the Waimanalo Forest Reserve. I understand that the encroachment issue is being resolved through this revocable permit with DLNR. To be clear, ARMD is not currently asking the board to make a decision on this matter at this time. ARMD will be coming to the board at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm going to ask the board a question that, if it would be helpful, counsel from the Attorney General's office is prepared to give you advice on the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities on this matter. Would anyone care to make a motion to go into executive session for this purpose?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Is there a second?
Second, Diane.
Thank you, Diane. It's been moved and seconded that the board will go into executive session to discuss this, non-action item. And with that, we will be moving into. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Take a vote. So, roll call. Okay, we'll just do a general vote. Are there any recusals or excuses or negative? Hearing, seeing none. Okay, we will be moving into executive session. Instructions for the public?
Yes, the public can stay on this, but for the board members, if you can please turn off your video and audio on the Zoom. And then, go to Teams. Which just make sure your audio and video is off on Zoom.
I'm so reliant on the script, Marcy. Which wasn't with me when I started, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Um,
DC.
What the hell?
Randy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't hear anybody on the
Oh, you
at the
don't?
panel. I hear you guys though.
Okay. Everything's quiet there. Can't hear anybody on the panel either.
so just so everyone is aware, we're back in public session. So welcome back, public, welcome back, board. The board has received a presentation from the deputy AG on this matter, the non-action item, and we will be moving to public testimony on non-action item, new business item 2. Anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
Did Brandon finish? He's still there. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Did Brandon finish this?
well, she did finish, so
Okay,
after
good.
the presentation by Brandy, but, Brandy, if you're still there and able, there's another item on the action, on item 2.
Yes.
About Kapapala Ranch lease transfer update. Are you prepared to do a little bit of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so regarding Kapapala Ranch, I did contact DLNR for a status update on the transfer of general lease number S4475, 5374, revocable permit 7637 and 7758 with for Kapapala Ranch. According to DLNR, they're waiting for their forestry division to complete the survey maps for the area that they wish to retain. So I was told that I would be given an update when that's completed. And that was I just confirmed that a couple of weeks ago with the Hilo deal in our office. And then I just wanted to give an update regarding the maps and surveys that our department was going to complete. That was completed back in October of 2023. And those were for the revocable permits.
And you're talking about Kapapala still, or for the other leases that we?
No, all for Kapapala in this
All for-
particular instance, yes.
Okay, did DLNR give you any timeline?
No, they did not.
Okay, thank you. Does the Kapapala lease have to be transferred by a certain date in order to be effective, or?
You know, I think the concern is if it's not transferred within a certain period, then the potential for the conversion period for us to convert the lease to a new long-term lease, they may be out of that conversion period, that window. I think that's the biggest concern right now. But if I remember correctly, and I don't have that in front of me, but if I remember correctly, the leases for Kapapala, the general leases for Kapapala Ranch can be extended because I think it's at 55 years. So the potential for us to extend it, let's say it doesn't get to us within the conversion period or that window, we could potentially extend it for 10 years up to the 65 years and then do a conversion thereafter. So yeah, I don't have any other comment on that.
So based on that, I want the board to know that there's no threat that the Kapapala, well, there is a threat but we can take action that the lease will remain transferable with board action.
As long as there's only 50, as long as there's less than 55 years, DLNR, they're not at their maximum. Because we can go up to 65 years for non-ag park leases, we can go up to the 65 years. Sorry, I'm tongue twisted here.
Okay, there's questions from Randy?
Hi, Randy.
Hey, hi, Brandy. My understanding is that the window ends in October. Yeah. As
Okay.
far as the lease, we were given assurances by DLNR that all of this would be done before October, and we're almost at the end of October. My understanding is also that a lot of the survey work has been done, and for whatever reason, it got put on hold, and I don't know if it actually started up again. I know Kapapala did a lot of work, bulldozing work, so the survey work could get done easier. And my question, I guess, would be to maybe AG, Deputy AG. Does the board have the authority to waive the 5 to 10 year window?
We'll call up.
I'm not sure, Kelsey.
Hey, Randy. So the board doesn't have the authority to waive the conversion window, but the board, under the rules, if I remember correctly, the board may, on its own action, allow for the convert, like basically make a motion without, I mean, that's not the right term of art, but to convert the lease.
Let
Okay.
me see if I make sure it's correct. The applicant has a window in which he can ask for conversion.
Yes.
The board does not.
Yes.
So the board, so when the applicant has a window in which the applicant can submit its request, but if he doesn't, the board on its own motion could, without regard to any window, convert a lease. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that?
Yes. Okay. So that's good. So that opportunity is still there. And I would request Deputy Ryan, if you could follow up on the survey as to what's going on, because we're given assurances by DLNR, and then it seems like they're not keeping their word on that. There may be circumstances, but we'd like to get this done. It's been a long time coming. Appreciate if you could help with that.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other hands are raised? Okay. So it's a non-action item. We have an update on Kapapala Ranch. Thank you, Brandy.
No problem. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so public testimony. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to testify and make comment on this item? Seeing none, we are going to move to adjournment. But before I do the adjourn, or I guess I could adjourn and then go into next month's meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Hey, Chair, this is Jimmy. I have one question real quick. Stephen Dalton left. You have a new tech guy that's there. What's his name?
Got to introduce our new wonderful, actually not new to the department, but new to the board. Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, Jason, Aces Richardson.
Yeah, Jason has taken on triple duties. He has many new computers to convert, but he.
Oh, great to have you on board. And did Linda Morai leave the department? She retired or something?
Linda did retire. She is on to her life as a
Realtor.
new life, going back
All
to
right,
that.
thank you.
Yeah, but his always be recruiting. If anybody on the board or in the public wishes to apply for an IT job with the department, please do. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jimmy, second?
Second.
Thank you, Randy. It's been moved and seconded. Board discussion, hearing none, moving to the vote to adjourn. I'm going to ask for if there are any
Recusals or no votes?
Recusals or no votes? Hearing none. The meeting is adjourned at 11:43, but please hang on because we're taking a survey of the date of the next meeting. We want to do a quick poll to see who would be available for our next meeting, which is scheduled calendar-wise for Tuesday, November 26th. The holiday is actually that Thursday, the 28th. Thanksgiving this year will be on Thursday, the 28th, and we would like to know if we will have quorum or if moving the meeting to the previous Tuesday, November 19th would work better for everyone on the board's schedule. So we can just put that out there right now, take a quick poll.
Both dates work for me. This is Jimmy.
Both days work for Jimmy. Can I have a quick raise of hands for anyone that will prefer that the meeting be moved to the 19th? If you prefer the meeting be moved, raise your hand.
Prefer. Yeah, I am not available on 26th, so 19th is better.
Okay, we would still have quorum with one absence. And Young is requesting that the meeting be moved to the 19th, even with two. We will still have quorum. We need 6, so. Is that?
I can't make the 19th. I can only make the 26th.
Okay. Brian, you have a comment?
I'm available on both dates.
Pardon me, Jim?
Um,
Brian, I didn't hear.
Both dates.
Both dates?
Yeah, both
You're
dates.
good, both dates are good?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing that, we're gonna stay with the 26th, okay? So making the announcement, the next board meeting is on Tuesday, November the 26th, 2 days before the holiday. Thank you, board. We are not only officially adjourned, but unofficially adjourned. Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
week,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
I will.
Bye-bye.